This video is brought to you by StarCharge, the largest EV charging manufacturer in the world. They are also a provider of residential and commercial battery storage with microgrid solutions. This video is also brought to you by Kempower, the reliable, quick, and scalable EV charging solution for everyone and everywhere.
Hello and welcome to Napa Valley, California. Now, if you had taken a Kia to wine country 20 years ago, they'd probably think you're kind of crazy, assume you're lost, and give you directions to the nearest Wendy's. But we now live in an age where Kia is basically somehow bringing its concept cars to life. Kyle's already brought you some super nerdy videos on, range test, which was actually really fun. Check that out here. He kind of ran it below zero. Charging things, 10% challenge, see how it does on a road trip. He's given you a lot of nerdy data. He even gave you a really intense, in-depth walk around of the car. Editor Jordan here. So if you haven't yet watched Kyle's videos on the EV9, it is an electric three-row SUV. Now the cheapest one on the market, I believe, starting with $55,000. Yours makes no difference for the light trim with the small battery. Videos on that are coming very soon, by the way, so subscribe. But this is actually the EV6 GT line, top trim, except it doesn't have the matte paint, which is interesting because this lighting signature we'll talk about here in a bit can't come with the matte paint, the custom little L's in the front bumper. So that's a very interesting point I just discovered. But anyways, this priced as tested is right about $78,000 and change for the GT line all-wheel drive with the premium like reclining package, not worth it, and the custom ocean glossy paint, which honestly is worth it. Looks fantastic. So this is the large battery, 99.8 kilowatt hours, EPA range of 270 miles, 6-passenger seating with second row captain's chairs, 379 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque. The specs are all right here if you care. But again, Kyle has already done some videos on this, so I do recommend checking them out, linked below. I'm just gonna be adding to that. There's some things that more of you guys have wanted to know, and I wanted to see how this car felt out here in Northern California. Because again, Kias way back in the day were kind of ugly and unassuming and just not the thing you'd take to a winery. But now I'm here on the coast. We are literally standing on Highway 1 and we are heading to wine country. So this is the first official press drive of the Kia EV9, which is interesting because usually these press drives happen before the car is like out to the public. But as you probably know if you're watching this, you may already have your EV9. There's dealerships with them on the lots. Interestingly, not really selling all of them, but I'm doing a press drive after it's already out to the public. So I do want to figure out more and more about this car. Like, we're going to test the sound system. I'm going to see if I can lounge in all of the chairs because they all do kind of have that functionality. How fast are the USB-C high power delivery outlets, as they call them? There's a lot to get into, so let's check it out. All right, so first off, let's get my quick take on the styling. This thing does look really good. I saw the concept when it was unveiled and when they brought it to the LA Auto Show over 2 years ago now. And much to Kia's credit, they are actually sticking with most of the concept in terms of the design language. Like, really good. Most manufacturers give you a concept and then it's like a bait and switch thing. You're like, wait, this is the final product? So I'm really impressed with how they kept with that. I prefer the tri-spoke wheels the concept had. This does have like 4-spoke, which is kind of weird looking, but fine. I guess 4 is a very blocky number, just like the rest of the car. You can get tri-spoke kind of looking things, although they're most like 6-spoke on the trim below this, the land trim, which is also kind of strange. So I don't know. The wheels are there's different options for wheels. This is 21-inch wheels, and it's interesting because they said, oh, the GT line can be equipped with rugged 21-inch wheels. And it's made to look more rugged, but I think the land trim should be more rugged. I don't know. GT line to me doesn't feel rugged. It feels like the mall crawler spec. the most luxurious lounge-like spec. So there are also 19-inch wheels, which I think would actually be more rugged because then you have more tire sidewall, which makes it more capable off-road. But whatever, I don't make the press materials. Then there's the lighting signature up here. These are actually really interesting, thicker and thicker L's, or thinner and thinner depending on which direction you're going. And these are actually customizable through and over the air kind of upgrade, which is kind of weird. But you can have 5 different types of customizable layout of this, which is cool. The LED signature on cars nowadays is literally what sets them apart from anything else. It's like their identity when you're seeing them come down the road. So it's cool that it lets you actually adjust the LED signature to what you want. But the rest of the car, yeah, nice and boxy. It is a bit polarizing because it's kind of concepty. I'm wondering how well it'll age. I'm curious what you guys think. It is obviously less polarizing than the Cybertruck, but will the Cybertruck age better because it's so left field? I don't know. That's a whole debate we could have in other videos, but this is slightly polarizing, but I'm gonna say safer than the Cybertruck, and most people will probably like this. It is very boxy, but the roof, as you can tell, kind of has that sloping down effect, and it actually pinches itself right up here as the floating kind of A, B, C pillars. Yeah, all 3 of them are black, and actually the blue never connects, so it really does feel like a floating roof, which is always a great design trend. And the rear kind of has some of the same super angular LED type signature, which they have on their new concept cars they showed at CES, the PBV vehicles. So it's just very Kia, very angular. I think I personally like Kia. It's interesting how Kia and Hyundai are in some ways competing, which we can talk more about that later. But this, I think, looks fantastic, and I would be highly surprised if the Hyundai Ioniq 7 beats it. This color also, it's some sort of ocean blue. There's actually a matte or satin ocean blue, which I think is the color to get. It's this, but matte, which is super cool. I've always liked Kia's matte colors. And a little bit of active aero up here. Now, this is kind of piano blacky, which is, I don't know, annoying on any car, inside or out, if you ask me. But it's more acceptable on the outside because you're probably keeping that more clean than your inside, in theory. But this is active aero that helps with efficiency or cooling, whatever it needs, which is kind of cool. They talked about the drag coefficient as well, 0.28 for the whole vehicle, which is pretty impressive. In the press material, they said it's more slippery than a Lamborghini Huracan GT3, which is a dumb comparison because that car is built for downforce, not aerodynamics. But hey, it gets clicks. So as you can maybe tell in there, I don't know if you can see the screen, but the USB ports, yeah, they're claimed to be fast, but I'm getting 25.1 watts, which is, yeah, that is actually fast. It's just not what I would consider fast. Power delivery USB-C ports can deliver up to 100 and something watts. I mean, 140 watts in some cases. I think BMW EQS gives you 100 watts on all of them, which is interesting because Kia keeps comparing this to all of its competitors, and this is one way it kind of loses. But that's plenty good for like a phone or even an iPad, which most people will be charging off these things. Otherwise, you got cup holders back here, 4 cup holders, oh, 3 cup holders, interesting. So 2 on this side, only 1 on this side, and this is for some reason not a full depth cup holder, which means there's probably something underneath here. You do have speakers. This is probably also where the intercom system, which the driver can talk through that and then make noise back here. Hey Tyler, can you give me, oh, can you
Don't make me come back there. Is this necessary?
I can hear you really well back here.
I can hear myself.
This is hilarious. Capacitive light switches, which is annoying. Just too much capacitive stuff in this car. And what's interesting is none of the rear passengers can actually access the controls to the rear shade itself. So you are reliant on your driver. Hopefully they like you and vice versa. Now, third seat rear room is what everyone wants to know about. I am completely wedged. And this is very slow to move. Come on. Yeah, that's rough. So I'd much prefer a like manual seat. So I'm gonna get out and then get back in to this seat again, which we have to wait again. I just hope you're like not in a rush to do anything. But sitting back in here, so this is about as far back as I'd want to sit. So I can barely sit behind myself. And I'm going to say I probably really can't even do that because that was really tight back there. This is better, but then these seats are an optional upgrade with how fancy they are. And you can recline, put this up, but then you will probably cut off your feet. I don't know if you can see down there, but I'm wedged up into that seat. So
You can move that front passenger one up.
yes, you can move this front passenger one up with these buttons, which I will do here.
We still need to test if you can do that while driving.
I think you can. You just can't do it on the driver's side, which is important. But as far up as that goes, it's still not far enough for me. It's better, so I can kind of lounge. That's as far up as it goes. So I'm lounging. It's now cutting off circulation to my calves. But from here up, I'm very comfortable. So this could work. But otherwise, this thing slides out. It's interesting. I forget you remember what they called this thing? It was like some fancy word for a center console that doesn't really need to be excessively fancy. But I also don't know how this is supposed to work. Oh, there we go. Ah, so it is storage. That's nice. Just kind of confusing in how it operates. That just slides right past it. I do wonder how long these things will last, but Kia is famous for really good warranties, so let's hope so. 2 more cup holders right here for the rear. So actually the farthest back, I almost said customers, occupants have the most cup holders, so that's kind of nice. So that's your lounge capability right here. Not amazing. I hate these armrests. Everyone uses them. The ones that like, oh, that's like the opposite of ASMR. I hate that. But rear heated and cooled seats, and they're actually pretty nice. There are these red handles on these back seats. So that's, I guess, how you fold them flat, which is good. So I do want to do that really quick. Fold these flat. Ugh. Which you can probably do with the switches in the trunk. Okay, let's see if it can fold 3rd row flat now. Presumably from back here. There we go. And then moving all of our luggage. Decent amount of storage space. I think it's 20 cubic feet behind the 3rd row, which is nice. Not class leading, but totally decent. That's on par with a Telluride, essentially. And yeah, I could absolutely car camp in this thing. The nice glass roof is really great. You would want a mattress. This is obviously
You also might want the bench seat in that particular situation.
Yeah. If you don't have the bench seat, you're going to want to fill this in with something. Or be okay with, if there's someone else here, just a rift between you guys, which might be good, honestly, to you're sharing a car with. But yeah, nice glass roof. Now, nowhere near like the Rivian glass roof, which a lot of you guys are wondering how this compares to the Rivian R1S. That's one way the R1S, I think, shines for sure. But yeah, a note about the bench seats. You can't get the top 2 trims, the GT line and the Land. You cannot get the bench seat currently. They might change that. They apparently listen to the customers and what they want, which is cool. Really cool that they even called that out in the press conference this morning. The presser, as we say. So bench seats would be preferable if you are car camping, which is, I guess, a point towards you may as well get the cheapest trim if you want, the long range rear wheel drive. I feel like I'm gonna play devil's advocate for that some of this video. I think that's a good trim. But okay, nap time. So now you can see from the back just how expansive it is. Honestly, not like crazy huge, but 80 something cubic feet. You know, the stats are all over the internet. Speaking of stats though, most people I think are saying there's 9 cup holders. As I mentioned, there's 3 in the back, 2 for the 2nd row, 4 up front, which we'll get to in a second. But there's actually 10. So let's go underneath the rear floor. Not really storage capacity per se. I mean, I guess you could fit a couple things in here. Here's like an air compressor, tire sealant with a really cool holder thing. And then under this flap is one final secret cup holder for no reason I can really tell, unless you are car camping and you want to hold a drink there for some reason. Back here is more controls for, I guess, the tailgate, which is internal. And then over here is a like cigarette lighter, 12 volt. Over here is your actual part of your vehicle to load capability, which is the AC volt. Oh, I guess it slides. There we go. Why do they make these all different functioning button things? And then power for 2nd row. If it's just power down,
Well, I mean, the arrow moves.
The arrow's going both ways. So back to the drawing board with that. That's, I don't know. What's in there? Orange high voltage things. We're going to leave that alone. And then up front, we do have more storage space. Now, big credit to, I'm going to say Tommy from TFL. He coined the term, I think he coined it, or maybe he stole it too, but front trunk is a frunk. This, kind of like the EV6, is a cubby. So, as he said, frubby. I don't know why I laughed so hard, but this is very small, bigger than the EV6, bigger than the little cars, but still not super useful. You could put your EVSE in here, which was also back in the unders trunk. This is the optional vehicle to load adapter, which you've probably seen with EV6, plugs into the J1772 port and then gives you the actual, I'll just open, there we go, way to plug in something to the outside of your car. So you have the inside and the outside, which is awesome. Honestly, every EV I think should have that capability, and partially because if you want to charge your computer and you don't have the 100-watt power delivery that the the Mercedes EQS has, then you have to use the actual power outlet. So this is your 1.8-ish cubic foot frunk or frubby. That's nice and solid. On the inside and the front, this is where, yeah. So here's where we left the front seat, just so I could like recline the back. So you really can't recline both. Don't even think about it. Yeah, so I would hate my rear passenger right now. So I'm gonna put this back, and here's all your seat controls. For some reason, no massage on the passenger seats or the rear seats. So I don't know why they didn't include that. If they're going this far.
Memory.
Or memory, that's right. So you can't even remember where your seat function was. Oh, now we're running into the rear seat, which is folded down. Everything's just a little bit compromised. Putting up the recliner, which is just takes forever. I don't know. What's your thought on automatic versus manual seats?
For the front, especially memory, then like obviously needs to be there.
With memory,
back, I could go either way.
With memory, it's great. Yeah.
I think the back is quicker to just, but I feel like they also need to validate a $2,000 seat option,
Well, in that case, just add massage, I think, maybe. I'm going to put this. I can't even. I love how the GT line is embedded in the front seats. That's kind of nice. There we go. Okay, now let's see if I can actually recline this thing. I'm just getting a workout just trying to maneuver this car. Okay.
Yeah, I can't quite figure out what the leg rest thing is for.
They make such a big deal of the leg rest thing, and if your legs are short enough, granted, I do have long legs, so I'm not the proper person to judge this, but
you have to put the seat so far back in order for your legs to even touch that leg rest.
Yeah.
That I feel like it's kind of pointless.
So in this case, in this configuration, you can fit 3 adults comfortably as long as those 2 are not reclining. But yeah, that's how the front really operates. It's pretty normal Kia up here, that sounds like a diss, but actually Kia's really blowing it out of the water with their, I think, interior design a little bit. This still annoys me. This, not piano black, now it's just the piano gray. And I don't really know what this is about. There's some holes right there for some reason. I feel like this could have been some other design element. I'm being really nitpicky. The glove box, you said, was different maybe on some of the other
it said that
models.
One was a drawer type design, and then another one was basically fold out, although this feels fold out to me, so.
That's weird. That's another thing about these press drives. We'll get into that in just a second when we take it driving, but these press events are, obviously they want the car to look good, so they give you the highest possible spec, which makes the car look good. But there's a lot of you looking to shop for cheaper ones. And so I wish they would just bring us the whole lineup, but of course that just doesn't look as good, I guess. So we'll probably go to Kia dealers for that video to actually compare all the trims, because I think that'd be really interesting. But up here you have this nice kind of garage door situation, and then you have these cup holders, which are way too fun and sort of gimmicky. I don't know if they're super gimmicky, but I have my water bottle, my Nalgene, fits fits. You could fit 2 Nalgene's here, or if you have something smaller, like this water bottle, that's a little bit too small. It is cool how the cup holders are like, this accommodates 4 different sizes of drinks, basically.
Well, that fit a Nalgene with the...
Oh,
hey,
it
look
does.
at that.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Well, that's worth at least
12
$1,000.
out of 10. Yeah, this they should charge extra for these cup holders. Here's where you put your key if the car is not responding to the key. Wireless charging. Basically, wireless charging for phones is kind of dumb. It's a very inefficient way to charge your phone. It's prone to overheating. This does have wireless CarPlay now. But you put your phone here and it's basically cooking in an oven of wireless charging, which is kind of silly. Some buttons here. I like how minimal this dash is, but these capacitive buttons really annoy me. We'll talk about that when we're driving too, because that's just frustrating. And then this torpedo sticking out of the steering stock is how you turn it on. There's a power button and it's a drive selector, which we're used to that. In EV6, I think it's like up here or something. I think it works and looks a little better up there. Down here, it just looks weird in general. Like these could have just been buttons right here. And then these could have been actual buttons. So plugging into the passenger or the driver's seat, I guess, which goes to the rear passengers. Let's see here. We are still in accessory mode. All right, that's delivering 25 and change, almost 26 watts. So that's about the same. And I'm guessing these up here are the same as well. There's one on the passenger side and there's actually one on the driver's side that can be data and power or just power, which that's really freaking cool. Passenger side, yep, we're looking at right about 25 watts. And now let's test this one. I'm gonna switch it to power only. So same exact ports all around the car, it looks like. So now it's got data, which would be funny if that somehow interfaced with this charging brick. This charging brick's really cool, by the way. Anchor 737, like the plane. Not sponsored yet, but yeah, 25 watts with data as well. So that's totally usable. I would just use CarPlay plugged in, not even wirelessly, because this will charge your phone better and much faster than the wireless charger, which will do 7.5 watts at best. Here's the shade button, by the way, for your rear passengers, which they can't even control by themselves. Yeah, he's gonna sit in the driver's seat here, which it's just a good looking canopy, honestly. I like this two-tone leather effect. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And I will, before you step on the pedals, point out the plus and minus. They took a page out of Volkswagen's book. Instead of play and pause, they did plus and minus, which is hilarious. But
yeah, I think it's very comfortable. Again, the leg rest thing, not quite understanding where I'm supposed to use that, but
if you're sitting charging, apparently.
I'm a fan of the Squircle kind of squared off steering wheel a bit. It's a very large steering wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my only complaint really is just this gray plastic. It feels a little weird, but I like the minimal kind of dash. You get a very good view. It is very, the visibility is really good as well.
Yeah, and we're in such a scenic place right now. We can really show you just how good. I mean, clearly the back door is open at the moment, but great visibility throughout. We feel like we're somewhat in a glass box, but I don't know, Rivian might have a slight leg up on that as well.
I think I would just spend all my time just rubbing the
really
headliner.
soft.
It's so soft.
Oh my gosh. All right, I'll be doing
$1,000.
I'll be doing this the rest of the drive. All right, let's take this thing out for a spin, shall we? Scrambling for traction there and into the first corner. So, not really that fast. It's funny that we call SUVs our sport utility vehicles, and this is not what you would say sporty. I know they kind of market it that way, but I don't necessarily feel confidence in the corners. Yeah, how'd you feel driving this thing?
I don't know, you definitely feel its size, that's for sure, but
Yeah.
I guess the average buyer of this is probably not sending it.
Yeah, it is funny. I asked some of the viewers on Twitter, or X, whatever you call it, what they want to know, and facetiously many of them were like, well, how's track mode? We don't have that, but I'm gonna try not to send it into any curves. Just gonna drive like I would normally. And these are some great roads, by the way, out here in Napa Valley. Yeah, you can feel the weight. This is 5,800 pounds, so 1,300 pounds more than a Telluride. but the battery pack's about 1250, so there's kind of where that weight's coming from. Of course, you don't have the engine to account for, but then you have motors that would make up the engine weight. I guess it's kind of like yours makes the difference. But the suspension's pretty impressively damped. And Kyle's done a whole driving video on this, so I'm not going to spend much time talking about it other than my impressions, I guess, beyond his. And I don't know I can't remember the conditions he drove in before, but these are pretty nice conditions. It's like 60 degrees outside or so really not bad, not cold like it was with Kyle, but I feel fine. This is the most aggressive you'd ever drive a 3-row SUV. If you have kids in the back, they'd be upset right now. Or happy, depends on the kids. They're like, send it, Dad. But it drives fine. It's sporty enough, I guess. A lot of people also are asking me, how does this compare to the R1S? It's somehow a lot of people are cross-shopping those, even though they're not exactly the same price bracket. Like this maxes out around where the R1S starts. So I guess that would be the quote-unquote fair comparison. How does the EV9 GT line compare to the R1S kind of entry model? And they're probably kind of comparable in many ways. The R1S might be a bit quicker. I don't remember the 0 to 60 time on the dual motor. I think it was like 4.5
or something.
Or yeah, low 4s, whereas this is 4.5. I don't know. You're kind of splitting hairs at that point. And it feels to me like, I would say, different crowd. I mean, we both live in Colorado, and a lot of Rivian people are like, oh my gosh, can't wait to hit the trails. I don't think any EV9 customers are like, let's go hit the trails. I don't know. I'm curious to test this like actual all-wheel drive system and see how capable it is. We have kind of an out-of-spec hill climb challenge, and we take some things on. Rivian kind of dominates it. I don't know if this would really do that well, but we'll find out. But out here in California, where they're trying to say this vehicle fits in with the wineries and such, it's fine. So we were both driven from the airport in one of these, and I even tracked the efficiency on that too. It was like we did like 55 miles and used 20% of the battery, so that's totally decent. And he was not ginger on. I mean, he was like doing 75, 80 most of the time. So it was fairly aggressive, and also just aggressive driving in traffic where it existed. But I was in the back seat for that, and my notes there was definitely a bit more noticeable road noise back there. I think it's like all the premiumness is pushed a bit forward in this car, and the further back you go, the less premium it feels, I think. And then, as you pointed out, the steering ratio is what do they call it? Long? Like it's slow. Yeah, it's not very confidence inspiring. This is where the steer-by-wire and like the Cybertruck would be nice. I feel like I have to do a lot more input, a lot more swiveling to get exactly where I want.
Yeah, I think I read it's like 3 turns to lock either way.
That's a lot. Now that we're driving in the city, I want to comment a bit on just some of the driver feeling things. First of all, let's go to do what almost no one would do and turn on active sound design. This is the smallest change, largest change. This is to give you feedback on how your driving is, apparently, which is just hilarious. This is like the fake driving noise that, like you said, I think most people should just leave it in CarPlay because the infotainment is not super great. Wow, that noise that would get old really fast, I think.
I think it's fun for our drive right now. But
yeah, right now we can feel sporty around town, even though I'm now in eco mode. This is flooring it, and we're barely moving. Warning, this car makes a lot of noises. Anyways, the massage is like it's like something just pushing on you. Like you mentioned, it was like a kid in the back seat pushing through your seat. Like older cars that had less actual seat like oomph. This just feels like things are being pushed on you, which I guess could maybe keep you awake in a way. But it's kind of a gimmick, I think. And then the driver's display, I guess it really depends on, I guess, your position. It's kind of a squircle-ish thing, but mostly circular. And the big like plumpy part right here completely blocks my view of this added 5-inch screen, which if they didn't have that there, it'd be this weird black area. But I think There's a big trend in automotive interior design right now, just having a seamless sort of panel, like in this case about 31 inches of screens. They are good quality screens. They're kind of matte looking finish, which is nice, it means less glare. But the fact that they're obsessed with filling every part of the screen, two 12.3 inch screens and then a 5-inch screen for climate, is kind of silly, because for me to adjust the climate to see what I'm doing, I have to do this, and then I'm not really looking at the road. And then there's the idea, like, all these buttons down here are separate from the ones up here. And so it's kind of confusing. What thing do you have to change with climate? You have to figure out what you have to interact with on which area. That's kind of annoying. And then the freaking capacitive buttons, which I just will never like, because we keep interacting with the screen and we naturally rest our hand or thumb down here to like settle ourselves because we're focused on driving. We don't want to be distracted. And so I'll do that. I'll like, okay, I'm gonna adjust something on here, and I end up hitting search, which then opens this completely different thing. So back to the drawing board with that. I don't know, do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely train yourself to rest on like this top edge there, but I've hit it at least 3 or 4 times. Just
Yeah, you just have to train yourself, which is fine. That's kind of a point. Like, you have all these controls on the door for heated steering wheel, heated and cooled seats. I love that the steering wheel has levels, but like, why not just give it 3 levels of heating, like the same with the seats? I don't really know. The seats actually are pretty hot too, if you ask me.
we crank it and say,
The heated, even level 1 is probably more than I would normally want. Like, I like
I like
level 1.
to roast.
You like to roast. I like level 1 to be barely on, and then increase it from there. So,
Heated steering wheel works well though.
yeah, heated steering wheel is great. I love having that. Someday maybe we'll have cooled steering wheels, but we're not quite there yet. I didn't turn off the massage seat, so it just decides to turn off
Yeah.
after a while, which I guess there's settings
Maybe
there.
there's like a
Session length.
got it.
The
So
longest
just-
you can do is 20 minutes. Oh, I'm gonna do strong. I'm gonna change it to 20 minutes.
You've got a lot of back pain.
You still can't do longer than that, which is just silly, I think. Just like, let me turn it on until I say stop. But whatever, you can just keep pressing the button, I guess. So what would be a test drive without a drag race? We're about to blow the doors off this Pilot, this Honda Pilot here. So should you buy an EV9 or a 2010 Honda Pilot? This is real consumer advice. Yeah, acceleration from a complete stop. I guess that's when you'd really test sport mode. Oh, he's inching on me. He's inching on me.
He's waiting for it.
Let's go. Wow, the delay after you press the pedal is immense.
That was a bit strange, wasn't it?
We absolutely destroyed him. But yeah, you press the pedal and then the car's like, oh wait, what? And then you go.
It sort of ramps into it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like a saving the tires kind of situation. It doesn't feel like it feels like it's almost limiting power for the first like 10 feet.
Yeah, it's not like a Rivian where it's just immediate power, which is probably why their 0 to 60 thing needs the 1-foot rollout that they include with it, which is just stupid. Anyways, I also wanted to mention some more about the lane, or I guess the driver assistance. I kind of like that you can separate the lane keep assist from the throttle. You can obviously do both, so I could do that right now. So now we're doing 47 miles an hour with lane centering. It's doing it all for me. I'm not touching anything, allegedly. But I can also cancel that, but it still steers for me. So now I'm controlling the throttle and braking completely, but it's still keeping me lane centered, which is cool. I don't really know why you would need that, but for some reason I think I would use that more than I realized. Because there's been a lot of cars that, like Tesla for example, autopilot lets you do adaptive cruise control, lane centering and all that, but sometimes I control the throttle better than I think I would trust the car to. Or like adaptive cruise control doesn't do what I would normally want to do as a driver. So that's kind of an interesting thing that's unique, I guess. I don't know if it's better or worse. It's just something worth pointing out. Oh, and then down here, so also, by the way, we changed the sport sounds to the lowest setting. That's probably where I'd keep it.
Yeah.
I would not do any louder than lowest, because otherwise I think it really does get annoying. But maybe you'd like it. I don't know. I'm curious, like, leave in the comments if you guys leave your fake engine noises on, or if you find them distasteful. One other thing I don't love is the drive mode being way down the bottom of the steering wheel. Like, there's just too many buttons on the steering wheel as is, and that's just like never in a place where it's convenient. And even like reaching it, you literally have to take your hand off the wheel and then press. So I'd rather it just be a button somewhere else, I think. Or maybe one of these buttons. Maybe you can assign the star to it. I don't know. There's two different stars. There's one on the dash that's capacitive, one on the steering wheel. I don't know. And then these materials here, they just get fingerprinty and it's distracting. It's not piano black. Maybe they heard that we hate piano black. Everyone in the EV6 hates piano black. So they're like, okay, how about piano dark gray? And we're like, okay, sure. This massage was like really pushing me.
You did put it on intense.
I put it on intense, and now it's like a kid just like literally kicking through the seat. And I want to punch him. No, I would not do that. All right, so once again, I'm letting the car steer itself. I'm in control of the throttle, so it's just doing the lane centering. And we are in a very kind of windy area. Not super windy, just windy enough to like put it to its test. This is just gorgeous scenery, by the way. And one huge awesome part is it's a capacitive wheel. I think that's really how driver assistance systems should work. Tesla's is notoriously great. Autopilot is amazing, but the non-capacitive wheel drives me nuts. But it also doesn't necessarily tell you if it can't make the turn. It just kind of fails. Which most of these are, it's working. Like, it hasn't let me drift over the center lane. It's keeping me between the mustard and the mayo, as we call it. But we've seen many times in this drive, just unfortunately while we're not filming, it just kind of gives up but doesn't tell you. And so hopefully you are paying attention, and you should obviously keep your hands on the wheel. This is not a hands-free system. It's not even marketed that way. It's just a really impressively done hands-on system, I guess. HDA, especially HDA2, is one of the best options, I think. See, right there, it failed, gave up, didn't tell me, it just sent us into the oncoming traffic. This is such a cool road. So, by the way, this is Tyler with Kelly Blue Book. We've been paired up, and a lot of these press drives you actually do get paired up with journalists, which means sometimes it's either better or worse. In this case, better, clearly. And hopefully you just align in how you work and stuff, which is great. So, just met Tyler, and we seem to work pretty well so far. And it's fun to share thoughts. I actually think I do enjoy the paired driving. I mean, I did the ID7 drive recently with Tom over in France, and that was fun because we got to bounce thoughts off of each other and, like, you know, feedback loop of what you think about different aspects of the car. We also sat through the same presentation this morning before we left. Kia told us everything about the car, obviously everything they want you to know about the car. So it's interesting to like intake that information and decide what you're going to share, and then also what maybe they didn't share that you can pick apart, etc. So they talked a little bit about their future, like EVs, I guess SUVs or CUVs, or just UVs for short, is like 70% of their sales. EVs are up 40% year over year, so it's just that trajectory of like what we kind of expected, right? EVs are getting more popular, SUVs and CUVs are very popular, and so the fact that this is an EV SUV makes total sense. I see why they're rolling things out as they are. They started with that super compact Nero, and then the EV6, which is kind of its own thing, and now more or less the electrified Telluride. And I was curious to see, you know, sometimes they don't want the cars compared that way, but they do see this as basically an electrified Telluride, and it's a bit more premium than the normal Telluride. At least that's how they say it. I would still love to compare the Telluride with this, like in a video. Let us know if you want to see that. But it'd be really interesting because the Telluride tops out in the mid-50s, and that's actually what they most popularly sell, is like the $50,000 or so Telluride. And that's right where the EV9 starts. Now, the starting EV9 is, of course, the cheapest small battery, rear-wheel drive only. That only gets you like 230 miles of range, which I think is still fine. And rear-wheel drive, again, so not all-wheel drive. To get all-wheel drive, it's an extra $9,000 because that's when you jump to, I guess, the wind all-wheel drive, I think it is. So that's definitely a price increase, but I'm going to say not everyone needs all-wheel drive. If you live in like Southern California, for example, and you want a 3-row SUV that's electric, getting one for $55,000 before incentives is, I'm going to say, pretty impressive.
And we are told that after they build their Georgia plant, they should be able to qualify for the $7,500. So
yeah, so that's another point. They mentioned incoming is this plant in, where is it? West Point, Georgia.
Right?
This summer, that's when they should be making EV9s, which would probably give them a tax credit back, I think. I don't know. Tax credit stuff's always changing too, and the later in the year they get, the more closer we get to like the presidential election, which who knows what could be adjusted in that time. So there's a lot that we're still waiting to see about, but all we can really comment on right now is what we have. But it is nice that we have this first drive event and the pricing. So many first drives are before the car is out to the public, and sometimes before pricing, which is frustrating. So it's like, okay, all I can talk about is the car kind of as I'm driving it, but I don't know how to give you proper consumer advice because we don't know pricing. That's not applicable in this case. We know everything about the car now.
You can buy one today too.
Yeah, you can buy one today. In fact, a lot of cars are on dealer lots, like Kia EV9s that are not being sold. So if you want one, you can probably go find one. And if you shop around, you could maybe get even a half decent deal. But I wonder if that's partially because they've mostly been shipping or schlepping GT lines. And I think some people do want the lower trims.
I'm interested though, because they did mention today that the GT line is the most popular one so far. And is that just because those are early adopters of this and they're willing to pay the highest price tag for them? Or is that truly what people are going to end up buying?
I think so. I think the GT line, it's kind of a skewed statistic. They're like, oh, the GT line's selling the most. And it's like,
okay, it's been out for what, a couple weeks?
If all you're building is a GT line and that's what's being sold, then yes, that is what is selling the most. So I don't know the exact stats around that. But it's funny, at least it's interesting to me to hear these press briefings, and some of the things they say, I do like to pick apart. They describe this as electric like you've never seen. And I think that's just hilarious marketing speak. Because they mention that because, I don't know, they're like, oh, it has vehicle-to-home capabilities, which actually don't exist yet, but that's what they're talking about. So that's coming eventually, supposedly by about Q2 this year. It's for EV diehards and EV curious alike. So that's possible. I mean, I think this appeals to the EV crowd, but also the people who are just wanting three-row SUVs, and they're cross-shopping this with some of the gas variant three-row SUVs that are just as expensive. They talked a lot about competitors. You noticed that, right? Mm-hmm. Every single point.
They really definitely want you to compare this to stuff that's a lot more expensive, and I think that's how they want to frame it.
Yeah, everything. Like, they talk a lot about, even on their website, go to to the EV9 on the Kia's website, it talks about Mercedes EQS SUV and Range Rover P400 everywhere. Everything's compared to those cars, which is hilarious.
Which, if you do frame it in that, like, this does feel cheap, you know? The Model X is considerably more. The Mercedes EQS SUV is more expensive. And I don't know, like, you do get a bit of that, of the capability there, but
it's effective marketing. I won't fault them for that. Some of the comparisons are right on the money, but then they like also pick and choose. Like, they compared the top of the line EV9, the GT line, and they said it's faster than the EQS SUV 450, which I actually misspoke this morning and said 250. It doesn't exist. 450. So they picked the entry-level EQS SUV and compared it to the highest end EV9, and they said the EV9 was faster. Great. But it's only faster if you buy the acceleration boost, by the way. Which actually the GT line comes with the acceleration boost. If you get the Land version or any of the all-wheel drive version, you can buy the acceleration boost for $900. We'll get to that in a second. And then they talked about this is more aerodynamic than the Lamborghini Huracan. I already mentioned that earlier, but that was hilarious because that is just an apples and oranges.
In case you were wondering,
it's a marketing ploy, just like Elon drag racing a Porsche against the Cybertruck, towing a Porsche, and then like leaving some things out of that. And yeah, they said it's everything you love in an SUV, now in an EV. So, some of those talking points. But while we're back, driving, I'm curious on your thoughts on the noise and comfort, because they kept comparing it to luxury SUVs. So we're driving around Napa Valley, seeing other luxury SUVs. I mean, we've seen e-trons and other things around here, because that's what you take when you go drive to your wine.
Sure.
Yeah, feels pretty comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a super fan of this. I don't know that it crosses into luxury territory, but it's certainly, for the buyer buying a Kia,
they're going to be more than happy with this, I think.
Yeah, Kia's done kind of the Mazda thing where they had a bit of a reputation that wasn't great, wasn't horrible. It was just they exist. It's like Applebee's, it just exists. But now Kia seems to be taking that step into what they consider luxury, sort of. It's still not really considered a luxury, but it's like, I don't know, premium. It's like there's all these different hierarchies.
I think that they know that EVs command a higher price due to the fact that the batteries are expensive to make. They know there's no way to avoid that. It's going to cost X amount of dollars to produce a vehicle like this. And so the only way to market it, the only way to frame it, is to add a little bit extra on top of that to make it a little bit more premium and command a higher price. I think that's the only way they can spin it. Because I think they could have made this thing cheaper, but only by a little bit, you know, like they're at the mercy of how much it costs to make the battery pack for this thing, which is not cheap. So,
and they still want it to be good enough quality that to where you're not like ripping it apart like some of the other cheaper things exist, and I think people do kind of lay into them a bit, and that's fine, but they're still cheap. Like, you have to remember that. So we have, sound dampening tires, we have sound insulating glass, optional in the rear, but I think standard via GT line. Basically, GT line just gives you like everything, which is nice. And then 379 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque, 443 pound-feet of torque if you don't get the speed boost all-wheel drive option. So their horsepower is the same, it's just the torque is different, hence the faster 0 to 60. To their credit, it's awesome that they have over-the-air updates. That's a big deal, I think. And you can subscribe to features monthly, yearly, or lifetime for like the lighting pattern, like the light patterns on the front, and then premium data for like music streaming and hotspot. And that's similar to Tesla, I guess. Subscription stuff is becoming more and more relevant in the automotive industry. You can have digital keys through your phone or an NFC key card, which is great. That's super cool. I think you still have to use the start button, and I'm actually okay with that, but it's only because I keep filming cars that keep turning off when I get in or out of them. And so maybe that's why I like the old school like start button. But I hope they bring the optional, or the base model second row, I hope they bring that as an option to the top trims, because not everyone views captain's chairs as the most premium version. Like, if you're a family who has the money and wants to get the nicest version but needs 7 seats, why not offer that?
We also debated whether power or manual seats were better, and in a lot of cases, if you're getting in and out of that third row, I think a manual option might be almost nicer.
Yeah,
it's a little bit quicker to just pop in and out, and
that's what I would choose.
How often are you changing your seat position in the second row? I don't know.
I feel like how I would they have some of these premium features, but I wouldn't pay for that massage seat. I don't think it's that awesome. I think I'd rather have the manual seats wherever possible. So, hot take, I would genuinely, intentionally pick a cheaper trim. Yeah. So, I don't know. We're enjoying the drive around the countryside. These roads are kind of rough, but we're actually decently comfortable. I would say
this is a good test here. This is more of what I was kind of hoping we would get a chance to drive on.
Yeah, the R1S will ride a bit softer if you have the air suspension. The EQS SUV will ride softer. So if you're going to compare against those cars, let me just keep the comparison going and say they will outdo you in some ways. But again, as they keep pointing out, and as we'll keep pointing out, they're more expensive. All right, there it is, properly wet. We just sent it through the puddle a few times because why not? And it really doesn't look dirty. Maybe this color hides dirt well.
I really appreciated the puddle here.
Yeah, nice. These drives just have a lot of driving and not a lot of time for filming. I think if you're writing, that's probably more conducive to that because you can just think and take notes and stuff all on the way. Think and conclude. But if you're filming, maybe if we had a bit of advice, don't necessarily do the entire drive route. Usually they are optional. Thankfully, Kia made it optional. we just did the whole thing, and maybe we shouldn't have, but it's fine. Still got a video out of it, still had fun, still had a lot of good things we learned about the Kia EV9. A couple more thoughts. It is getting dark, which means we can see the ambient lighting, which maybe you can see. You can change that, and you can actually have two different sections of ambient lighting. So like down here could be a different color than up here.
It's tasteful too. It's not like in your face.
It's well done. Like there's some back there, a little bit down here, not a lot in the back. I don't think there's any in the third row. I don't see any, at least not from my perspective. So a little bit in the back row, a little bit up here, not overwhelming like you'd see in, say, a Mercedes EQS SUV, which they keep comparing to. And then I wanted to mention the stereo system. A lot of you guys have asked about the Meridian. It is really good, really, really clear. The highs are exceptional. You really don't even need to boost the treble at all. Mid-range I usually leave 0. Bass you can crank up a bit because it's not overwhelming at all. There is a sub in the premium Meridian system, but it's just not super prominent. I wish they gave you separate subwoofer and bass control like Tesla does. It's ironic that they show you a mixer emblem here with 5 mixer things, and it's not a 5-way EQ, it's a 3-way EQ. That's all you get. You can also turn on Meridian IntelliQ, which I think is not good. And then stereo jamming and immersion don't really help either. So I'd probably just leave all of that off. Otherwise, everything else is pretty good. Here's where was the lighting at? Vehicle, then lights. And then you can see the ambient lighting color. That's like 18 presses to find what you're looking for. But here's, yeah, you can kind of adjust things. So now it's purple down below, pink up top, yellow and green. So that's kind of how they separate it out. You can see even in the door right there. And there's even custom, so you can do upper and lower completely what you want. Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit quirky, but it works, I guess. So just gonna leave that at that. It's interesting how the legacy manufacturers and some of the startups like Rivian, and I guess you could sort of still call Tesla a startup, are all struggling with the same things, figuring out how to build EVs, how to make good software. All this new stuff has kind of leveled the playing field in some ways. All the things Ford figured out 100 years ago on how to make a car is pretty much well known at this point. So they're all trying to figure it out kind of together, but they're also competing, and competition breeds really good products. This, I think, is a really good product. But I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. What else do you want to see with the EV9? We'll, of course, do more things with it. We've already done a lot. Again, check out Kyle's nerdy testing videos. This was just a bit of fun with the EV9 out here in California, exploring and figuring out what else we could. Now we know how fast the USB-C ports are, so that's important journalism right there. And yeah, this was kind of a press drive. So maybe you learned a bit about what that means even, because I'm sure you see a lot of people's videos. A lot of other journalists are out here with me. TFL, Tommy has made a video, Sophion, Redline Reviews, lots of guys. I mean, they had 15 cars and 2 waves. So that's 30 cars out making content, and paired up means 60 journalists-ish. So a lot of stuff off the press, a lot of great opinions and input. Definitely check out what other people have said too, because we all have our own little spiel we give, things we look for in a car, and hopefully we're all giving proper consumer advice to all of you guys. So it is now the next morning. I've lost my voice, but we now have the Kia EV9 Land Edition, just for reference. Actually, that's the only Kia they could let us film with this morning, because it's final thoughts, last minute things. I wanted to give you guys a final summary wrap-up situation. By the way, this is the like tri-wheel design, which is a bit more like the concept car, interestingly. They didn't put that on the upper GT line trim. But I did get a couple more clarifying points last night with some of the people with Kia. They're still getting final details for me, but basically you guys want to know the differences between the larger and small battery packs. Why does the bigger battery pack, 99.8 kilowatt hours, why does that charge at a slower peak rate? It's because it is lower voltage than the smaller battery pack. So the smaller battery pack is higher voltage, closer to the quote-unquote 800 volt architecture. I mean, it still is like architecturally 800 volts, like that's classic cabling and stuff. That's why they call it 800 volts. Basically just round either direction, 800 or 400 in a way. But yeah, this is 800 volt architecture, but the smaller battery, the 76.8 or whatever that is a higher voltage, which is why it charges faster. And that's also more like the battery that's used in the EV6, hence that car charging faster. The other thing I asked for clarification on, which they're still getting final details, but basically our consensus was the light, which is the base model, and the light long range, the base model with the bigger battery, they had different power numbers, although they're the same motor, the rear motor on the rear axle. That's because the light long range, I think, is slightly detuned. That motor is slightly detuned to give you the extra range. Well, obviously the bigger battery gives you extra range, but that motor detuned only at 201 horsepower, whereas the light non-long range is 215 horsepower. That subtle power difference, it could be a detuning. It could also be actually a point of the pack voltage. So we're still chasing the figures. We're still chasing down answers from engineers, but we're trying to give you guys as much details as possible. So thanks for joining us in wine country. Tyler, you should just spin around, just show everyone where we're at, because this is a really cool area. It's cool that they have all the EV9s out here. It's funny that we are in wine country. Like I said in the beginning of the video, if you had told me to bring a Kia 20 years ago to Napa Valley, I'd be like, do I want to be seen in a Kia in Napa Valley? And now I'm happy to be seen. This thing looks fantastic. I'm actually a bit more of a fan of these satin kind of matte colors, which are, you know, a little bit harder to take care of, but I think it's worth it. The ocean matte would be kind of the spec, and unfortunately they don't have one here, but it's been a fun ride. I think me and Tyler have had some fun out here, and yeah, that's pretty much it. If there's anything we missed, definitely leave comments down below. We're still chasing all the info, and we're going to try to deliver it to you as soon and as fast as possible. So let us know what we've missed. We'll find some more EV9s. We'll do some comparisons between the different trims. We'll compare it against the Telluride. Sky's the limit. Cheers.